My ex-husband dropped divorce papers onto my lap while I was still completely numb from an emergency C-section, emptied our life savings, and fled the country with his coworker. He thought he left me with nothing but a premature baby and a mountain of medical debt, but he forgot that I knew his company's deepest secrets. Get cozy, because this is a massive multi-part saga of absolute betrayal and ultimate self-made success with zero cliffhangers. To give you a backstory, I had what I thought was a happy marriage to a man named Arthur. But the moment our son arrived 2 months early via terrifying emergency medical procedure, Arthur completely checked out. While our tiny baby was fighting for his life in the NICU, Arthur walked into my hospital room, looked at the empty bassinet, and slid a manila envelope onto my bed. He didn't look at me. He didn't ask how I was feeling. He just coldly told me that our situation was a burden and he didn't sign up for it. He had a packed suitcase in his hand, a brand new designer tie, and a one-way ticket to Singapore. It turned out that he had been having an affair with his regional director for months and that they were relocating together. Before he boarded that flight, he logged on to our joint accounts and drained all $55,000 we had saved for a house down payment and emergencies, leaving my balance at exactly $8.14. I was sitting in a hospital bed, physically broken, emotionally shattered, and entirely broke. That afternoon, my sister Charlotte arrived at the hospital, and she brought backup, her husband Marcus, who happens to be a ruthless corporate attorney. I expected to just cry on her shoulders, but the second Marcus saw the empty bank accounts and the signed divorce papers, his inner shark came alive. Arthur had left a sloppy trail because he was in a rush to catch his international flight. Marcus opened his laptop right there on my hospital table and looked up Arthur's new employment contract. Because Arthur's new overseas job required strict security clearances and moral turpitude clauses, a massive financial fraud allegation would get his visa revoked and his new career completely ruined before it even started. Marcus drafted a counter agreement within 2 hours and emailed it directly to Arthur while he was at his layover gate. The ultimatum was simple. Either Arthur could sign away all parental rights, forfeit any claim to our assets, and disappear forever, or we would file immediate grand larceny charges with the police and notify his new corporate headquarters of this theft. Arthur, being the absolute coward that he is, signed every single page digitally before his plane even left the tarmac. I gave up child support because I wanted my son completely free from a man who considered him a mistake. 3 days later, I was discharged. I had to leave my baby behind in the hospital incubator for nearly 3 months. Because I had no savings left, I had to move into a tiny, cramped studio apartment on the 3rd floor of a building with a broken elevator. Every single day before work, I took 2 buses to the hospital just to hold my son's hand through the plastic glass. When he finally came home, he required a portable oxygen tank. Every morning, I would carry my baby his medical gear and a heavy diaper bag down 3 flights of steep concrete stairs, take the bus to daycare, and then head to my job at a regional medical supply warehouse. I was working entry-level data entry, earning barely enough to cover the interest on my hospital bills. But at night, while my son slept in 90-minute intervals, I pulled up an old borrowed laptop and started studying the warehouse's shipping manifests. I realized the entire medical distribution network in our state was broken. Hospitals were running out of critical pediatric fluids on holiday weekends, while warehouses down the road were throwing out expired surpluses. It was a massive chaotic waste and nobody was fixing it. The turning point happened during a massive winter blizzard. A local children's clinic ran completely out of specialized infant respiratory tubing, and the main corporate delivery trucks refused to drive through the storm. The managers at my company shrugged and called it an act of God. I couldn't sit there and do nothing. I stayed up until 3 a.m. at my folding kitchen table, building a completely rewritten routing algorithm using local couriers and backroad mapping. The next morning, I walked straight into our regional VP's office, put the map on his desk, and said, "Give me 1 van in 3 hours." They let me try it out of sheer desperation. My route bypassed every major highway bottleneck, and the emergency medical supplies were delivered to the clinic in exactly 45 minutes. The VP tried to offer me a standard $500 corporate bonus. I smiled, slid the check back across his desk, and said, "No thank you, but I want to head the new emergency logistics division." Within 2 years, I optimized their entire West Coast supply chain. I learned the industry inside out, made invaluable connections with hospital CEOs, and realized I didn't need to work for someone else anymore. I quit, took out a small business loan backed by my proven routing data, and launched my own specialized medical transport firm, Vanguard Medical Logistics. Fast forward to today, my son is 9 years old, completely healthy, thriving, in the absolute light of my life. Vanguard Medical Logistics is now one of the premier emergency transport contractors in the region, operating a fleet of state-of-the-art climate-controlled vehicles. We just moved into a beautiful custom-built home with a massive backyard for my son to play in. And a few months ago, I attended a major international healthcare gala because my company was being honored for our charity work with pediatric hospitals. I was standing near the banquet hall entrance wearing a gorgeous tailored gown when I heard a familiar voice stumble over my name. I turned around and there was Arthur. He looked absolutely exhausted. It turned out his glamorous Singapore romance had fizzled out years ago. His corporate career had stalled, and he was working as a mid-level account rep for a minor vendor. He looked at my award, looked at my jewelry, and nervously asked if he could see pictures of our son. I looked at him dead in the eye, took a sip of my champagne, and calmly said, "My son has an incredible life, and you signed away the right to even know his middle name on a hospital tray 9 years ago. Enjoy the gala, Arthur." I turned around and walked away without looking back. Sometimes people think that they can break you by taking your money and your peace, but they forget that your resilience is something they can never steal. If you want to hear more stories like this that are full and complete, make sure to follow my channel. I am Meesh, and I read the tea.